Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Goldfarb, and I'm a solicitor in the immigration team at Bindman's, heading up the business immigration team. Welcome to the latest edition of Immigration Unpacked. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Natalie Loader, who is a partner in our immigration team, and we're following up with a little bonus episode or an additional episode to our two-part series on recent changes announced and put into effect by the Home Office in respect to sponsor guidance and sponsor duties and responsibilities. Today, we're going to focus on the changes that the Home Office announced in respect to pay periods. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Natalie, who is going to do an incredibly admirable job of explaining what appears to be an unbelievably complex new algorithm that the Home Office are requiring sponsors to adhere to with regard to pay periods, going rates, and so on. So take it away, Natalie.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying I'm not a mathematician. That's where I'm going to start. Again, it's not new, but it's just extra scrutiny in relation to pay periods. So until the 8th of April this year, the Home Office would have looked at the minimum salary that you needed to pay your sponsored workers as a sort of headline salary, and that's what they need to be paid over the course of the year. There was always a case that they would expect that someone is paid regularly or paid in accordance
Hmm.
with their contract, and so this is now properly set out and codified in the sponsor guidance. So from the 8th of April, the Home Office aren't just going to look at that headline salary anymore, but they are going to look at whether you are paying people the minimum salary required over what they're terming a pay period. And there'll be different pay periods depending on how salary is calculated, basically. So for most sponsors, probably this isn't going to be a massive issue because if someone's got an annual salary and they're paid every month and it's, 1/12 of whatever their annual salary is that they're being paid that month, then it isn't really going to matter. But it can become more complex for people who have irregular working patterns and who have, as a result of that, irregular pay. So, first of all, if salary payments are being paid with a monthly frequency or less, then the Home Office are going to look at what the annual salary needs to be, and then they're going to look at the pay period as a 3 month pay period. So that means you would divide your annual salary by 12 months of the year and then multiply it by 3 months. And then over that 3 month period, the person needs to be paid whatever their minimum salary should be in accordance with their cause. And just to sort of underline all of this, at any point, everyone has to be paid the going rate for all hours that they work. Remember that. So there's sort of two hurdles with minimum salary. There's the salary you need to be paid for the skilled worker visa, and there's the salary that you need to be paid for the occupation code. And the salary you need to be paid for the occupation code is called the going rate, right? So they must meet or exceed that going rate at all times. But we are also now looking at whatever you declare as the annual salary, and that has to be paid, if you're paid with a monthly frequency or less, then over a 3 month period, that should be basically 1/4 of your annual salary. Where someone is paid more frequently than monthly, then the Home Office are going to look at the pay period as being a 12-week pay period. So that means whatever your annual salary is, you would divide that by 52 weeks of the year, multiply it by the 12-week pay period, and then that is what you have to be paid over any 12-week period. It's more difficult when we get into regular working patterns where someone has a varying salary. There, the Home Office will look at the salary over a 17-week period, and 17 is such a difficult number. But basically, you would then
Yes.
take the annual salary, divide it by 52 weeks of the year, multiply it by the 17 weeks for the pay period, and that is how much someone with an irregular working pattern with uneven pay needs to be paid over the course of 17 weeks. So annual salary, divide by 52 weeks, multiply by the 17-week pay period, and that's how much they need to be paid in the 17 weeks. So this is a little bit makes it a little bit more difficult, I think, for sponsors to manage pay. But you are going to need to put in systems which make sure that you're going to be meeting the requirements for the pay period, because failure to do so could mean that you then get an investigation on your license. And remember, the Home Office is now has a data sharing agreement with HMRC. They are using AI to crunch those numbers. They are able to see where someone is falling below the right salary during their pay periods. So it's really, really important that sponsors have a way of monitoring this, and that if there are any allowable deductions, which means you are going to fall below the minimum required for your pay period, that you are notifying the Home Office of those allowable deductions. So allowable deductions could be, salary sacrifice for pensions, repayment of loans, something like that, but they can't include business costs or immigration costs. Additionally, someone might fall below because they've had a reduction in salary for a permissible purpose, such as sick leave. And you remember, if weeks ago we had a podcast with our
Yes,
our
we did.
colleague in our employment department, Roshan, and we talked about statutory sick pay coming into play from the first day of sickness now. So remember, if you are having someone who's going on to statutory sick pay or any other kind of allowable deduction, such as maternity leave or paternity leave, parental leave, then you are reporting that to the Home Office so that they know to expect that there will be a reduction and you won't be meeting the minimum requirement for that pay period. So it all feeds in together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, but it's more balls to keep in the air. Sorry, I'm mixing my metaphors really terribly, but there's a lot to remember. That you've got to make your reporting, you've got to notify the Home Office if anyone's going to have a salary dip, and you have to make sure not only that you're paying someone the right amount for the course of the year, but they're being paid the right amount for their relevant pay period. So I hope that makes sense, but it is a bit complicated. So I would say, if at all you're in any doubt that your systems are not adequate enough to monitor these pay periods and make sure that you're going to be able to hit them, do get in touch with your immigration lawyer, because they can come in, they can help you audit your systems, they can make recommendations on what you might need to put in place, work together with any payroll accountants to test whatever you do find will work for you to monitor the pay periods. So act now, don't delay, because these rules are already in place. They've been in place since the 8th of April this year.
Thank you. That was actually incredibly crystal clear, and
Was it great?
yes, well done. No, it's I mean, I think what I would reinforce is that after that wonderful explanation is that the framework is part and parcel of ensuring ongoing compliance. It's about the hand in glove enforcement tool that the Home Office are using, and the new concept of pay periods. You're right. It's not new that the Home Office and UKVI have been interested in pay and making sure that skilled workers, sponsored skilled workers, and others are paid at the right rates. This is a new way of looking at it, but it goes hand in glove, as I say, with compliance and enforcement. But it's all about the safeguarding, particularly for individuals who are sponsored, who are
Mm,
on contracts where hours vary throughout the week or throughout the month. And
yeah,
it's because the Home Office want to make sure that they aren't leaving people on salaries that actually aren't livable, that fall below
exactly.
working time regulation requirements and national minimum wage
Hmm.
requirements, and indeed the going rate requirements for the particular
Yes.
stock code. I think we'll pause there on pay
Hmm.
periods and move on to just a couple of other changes that were also recently announced, some of which come into effect or have already come into effect,
Hmm.
and one that is actually an incredibly rare heads up from the Home Office as to a long-term future change,
Hmm.
something which is coming into effect next year. Do you want to briefly talk us through the changes to the Global Business Mobility Secondment Worker route, which is for high-end users, but may well impact some sponsors who are hopefully watching this podcast?
Yeah. So the global business mobility has a few strands under it. So there's sort of two strands to sponsored work in the UK. There's the skilled worker route, and then there's global business mobility. And global business mobility, it replaced the old intra-company transfer. So there's a strand under global business mobility called the secondment worker visa route, and it's pretty niche, as you say. So it's for overseas employers who have a high value contract or investment worth at least 50 million with a UK organisation, and they need to send people to the UK temporarily to work on those contracts. So previously, in order to qualify for the visa route, any transferee coming from abroad to the UK to work on one of those contracts must have been employed by the overseas employer for a period of at least 12 months. Well, they've reduced that to a period of 6 months now. So it's a very niche change, but for anyone who is impacted by it, the tenure outside the UK prior to a COS being assigned and coming to the UK is now 6 months rather than 12 months. So this is just to, I think, there to offer greater flexibility for businesses who are using this route and to make or to attract more high value project work to the UK.
Right. Yes. Yes. There have also been changes in respect to the English language requirements, haven't there, Natalie? Both for skilled workers and for anybody wanting to make an application for indefinite leave to remain. So, would you want to just give us an overview of what those changes look like?
Sure, sure. So we need to go backwards a little bit. So
Yes, we do.
I think everyone will know, or if they don't, they should know. On the 8th of January this year, the English language level for skilled workers was raised. So previously it was level B1 of the Common European Framework of Reference, which is also known as the CEFR. And level B1 is a lower intermediate level of English. So skilled workers have always need to have shown that level of English when they're making their initial skilled worker visa application. On the 8th of January this year, it was raised to level B2, which is an upper intermediate
Hmm.
level. So what we're seeing now is obviously just a tightening of the immigration rules, everything going a little bit harder for everyone else. And the Home Office have given us basically a year's notice that the English language level for those applying for ILR from the 26th of March 2027, so from next year, is also going to raise to level B2. So this is going to impact people in the following visa categories. So skilled worker, global talent, scale up, innovator founder, UK ancestry, international sports person, long residence, if we still have a long residence route at that point,
If we
and
do,
also
yes.
in family routes. So the Home Office are giving you basically a year's notice because it takes time to increase skill level. And while it's not, I don't think it's a massive jump. It's still a higher level. So we're going from lower intermediate to upper intermediate. If you're planning to apply for ILR after the 26th of March 2027 and you're worried about your English language level, now is the time to start getting English lessons, using whatever English language apps you've got, watching as much television as you can, just to improve your English language level. And it's important to note that, even if you had to show an English language level as part of your original application, if the level wasn't at least B2, you're going to have to retake an exam. So anyone applying for ILR in the categories that I listed from the 26th of March 2027 needs to have level B2 of the Common European Framework of Reference.
That's right. And I think it's really interesting and unusual that we've had such a long on-ramp. We had
Mm.
almost a year's notification about the change for the English language requirements for indefinite leave to remain, which is a really positive note to end on for this
Yes,
podcast. I want to thank
finally,
you.
positive.
Finally, I want to thank you very much, Natalie, for your brilliant explanations and examination of the changes to the way that the Home Office are going to be looking at pay periods and pay structures. And we'll see you next time for another edition of Immigration Unpacked.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.